Very hard for me sitting here to give you a price prediction, but I can pretty confidently say that Bitcoin, I think, has effectively replaced gold, and it will continue to do so. And so that market cap is just going to grow. And then for the first time, I think we're seeing the initial versions of the solution that we thought Bitcoin was supposed to be: smart contracts and better savings accounts, better insurance, better credit scoring. And that's happening through this DeFi stuff that's being built on Ethereum and Solana. These are the terms that people are.
I read recently where you said you're building a, quote, sizable portfolio of NFTs. I mean, talk about bubbles. I mean, the air sort of came out of SPACs, it came out of NFTs. And what do you have an interesting look on your face.
I'm not ready to comment on my crypto holdings outside of Bitcoin.
Well, but you said you were building, I mean, I read this. You said you were building
Other
a sizable
than that quote,
portfolio.
I am not ready
Digital art and all that.
I'm not ready to comment.
But you think, are you looking at more what I would call alternative assets as places to best deliver alpha today? I'll ask it that way.
That's a fabulous question. I'm very concerned about medium-term inflation. And so in an inflationary environment, in my very simplistic view of the world, I want to own three things. Hypergrowth, because hypergrowth can always outrun inflation. Think of that as like companies that are growing 50+% a year. It's incredible growth, right? Then I want to own cash generative assets. Think of that as like, a great example is like a mining stock. I know that sounds crazy, but it's pretty incredible. And then I want to own non-correlated assets. Bitcoin, Solana, DeSo, a lot of the DeFi protocols, because it's a great counterintuitive hedge against all of this stuff. There is a huge opportunity to build a distributed energy utility. I've mentioned this to you before, but I think there's going to be a cataclysm in the energy markets. I think the utilities are under duress. They're in a very, very difficult spot, and the laws don't understand what will happen when individuals like you and I can generate our own power. And so, again, closing the circle on Virgin, when I sold a couple $100 million, it was in large part to fund this thing, which is quickly becoming, over the next few years, in my opinion, will be the largest distributed energy utility in America. So I'm very proud of the work that I'm doing over here, and hopefully, I'll pick up a little bit of the slack that Tesla is not going to be able to operationalize as they build an incredible EV business. And so both things I think will happen. I think it'll manifest in a different company.
You still have a sizable stock position in Tesla?
No.
You sold it?
Yeah.
When?
Over the last few years, we've sort of, not last few years, like really in the last year or so particularly, the prices allowed me to, again.
Surprised to hear you say that after what you just said about the company.
Well, I don't have an infinite pool of capital. I'm myself. I don't raise funds. I can't go to other people. And so when I have these ideas, the money has to come from someplace. The only other solution would be for me to get totally levered up. And I'm just not comfortable with that risk. And so, I'm a meager guy with meager means.
Yeah, right.
I think Bitcoin needed a moment like this for it to be relevant. In 2013, I bought a lot. And at one point, I think I had almost 5% of all the Bitcoins. My basis is about $80 a coin. I've never bought more. Most of my Bitcoin now sit with a company. And, they use it for trading purposes. They use it to run a bunch of other strategies. And I did that mostly for safety and security and peace of mind. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to own equity in a business. That equity can be hedged. That equity can be tax structured advantageously, and then it allows them to run a big business which generates cash, and I can get a cash and dividend stream. So I have not bought since I initially basically wrote that article for Bloomberg in 2013. My thoughts are the following. Right now, I think what you're seeing is that it's still a speculative instrument, and it's too speculative for it to be reliable. So if you're going to make the case that, it should replace fiat currency, well, one thing you have to look at is the volatility of the US dollar, and you can't replace it with something that's 9 sigma more volatile. It doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is that it's again, going back to what markets are important. The only market that's even more important than the debt markets are the currency markets. And what you see is enormous amounts of liquidity where 5% moves, so 500 basis point moves, are newsworthy. Well, those 500 basis point moves, in the absence of some massive exogenous event, take years to play out. And in that, there's value because it allows more market participants to be active in that market so that they can use it as a critical pillar of how they run their business. But now all of a sudden, if you have 2,000 basis point moves a half hour, you can't effectively use it. And so what it does is it pushes it into this ghetto of day traders and speculators. And right now, that's where we are. We're in that ghetto. And you need to get out. And the way that it gets out is that you need to flush the speculators and day traders out. And you need to have still some basis of interest from long-term holders. And then you need to have it slowly look like the traditional infrastructure could really implode. So again, I go back to, we are driving slowly, but we are driving towards a top of a cliff. And then we're going to drive much, much faster down that cliff or down that hill. And at the end of it is a huge brick wall. The way we avoid it is by pivoting to a resilient economy where we introduced inefficiency and cost and inflate our way out of it, or debasement. The path dependence for Bitcoin is, if it looks like path 2 is likely, it will really emerge as a flight to safety. And over the next 10 years, where this trajectory is going to take shape, and it is a 10-year trajectory, you'll have a lot of time to vector into it, to protect yourself and to hedge yourself. And I've always thought of Bitcoin as a very binary investment, whether it goes from 80 to 8,000 to 6,000 to 3,000 to 13,000, it doesn't matter. This is either zero or it's millions. Because what it will do is it will create a quasi-gold standard. It'll create an index, except instead of having to own gold, where gold is owned by central banks, it is an instrument that has value that's determined by and between its participants, and it's owned by everybody.